Mr. Speaker.
Alfred Ngaro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise and take a call on this third reading of the Child Protection, Child Sex Offender Government Agency Registration Bill in its third reading. I want to agree with the comments that have been made by the previous speaker in regards that this is too serious a bill for us not to contend with it with the most, I suppose, serious of concern, but also to ensure that we do the appropriate and the right things in regards to the safety and concern for our young people, for our families, our whānau and our children and our tamariki inside of our communities. We know that just of late there's been a heightened concern where communities and like my good friend and colleague Chris Bishop down here in Lower Hutt and other members of Parliament that are here who've had concerns from the community when there's a reintegration of an offender, a sexual offender into their community and the concerns that that raises. So the intent of this bill, Mr. Speaker, is to ensure that from what we can play in our roles of responsibility, ensure that legislation plays its role to ensure that there is safety concern at the heart of this bill. So the heart of this bill is to both enable and establish what I would say is another tool. I know that the comments from the previous speaker was around on its own. A register on its own will not solve the issue. We do acknowledge that. But instead, what this tool does is that it adds to a suite of other tools to ensure that there is adequate information. There, in 2013, what was established was the Centre for Information for Sexual Offenders. What was clearly realised in that period of time to be part of the initiation of this bill and legislation was the lack of current and up-to-date information. And so that's the reason why this register plays an important role in that regards. So we had over 140 submissions, 22 oral submissions, and a number of those submissions addressed a number of key issues. And I want to just highlight on some of those. So some of the concerns that were raised, and I'm sure that my colleague Derek Ball will raise them in regards to making the register public. Now, there is a point in the registration that when we think about judiciaries across the world, there isn't an example of one single judiciary which is able to give information around how the registry will play an important role as far as being whether it's confined to government agencies or actually open to the public. But there is enough information to say that the registry in itself plays an important role to reduce offending, and it does that by providing information in which the Centre for Information for Sexual Offenders is able to create a profile of risk and then be able to initiate a management profile and opportunity to ensure that they address these key issues. That's the key role of this register. That's what it will play. I do hope, though, that in the seriousness of this, that the New Zealand First will consider this, that it would not consider voting for the bill because of the fact of this one point of it, the register being public, because there's so much more to this that actually makes sense. There's so much to this bill that actually makes a difference, and I want to highlight some of those, Mr. Speaker, if I can. One of the things that came out of the recommendations from the Select Committee was around the importance of the information for the judge's notes. We know that when this information is put forward, often the profile agencies of police and corrections are not privy to that information. So those notes are important because it's not only giving extra guidance to the judges, but it also allows for when the making of a profile, just to some of the inherent details that are quite critical in the importance of their profiling as well. The other important aspect of this register is that it also ensures that up-to-date information around the children that may be around the offender, both in the house and the surrounding areas as well. Also when the offender is travelling, to ensure the fact is that if there's the residence of the offender, where they may be, if there are children there, that has to be notified. So we're gaining more information. That information is going to be critically important as well. We've covered issues around, for instance, access to social media, internet accounts. Those are going to be critically important too, to ensuring that the up-to-date information around this profile, this risk management profile, is important as well. We've also ensured that all the conditions that are part of the non-custodial sort of duties that are put onto the offender are there as well, to clarify when offenders must report, clarify when reporting obligations, and also to allow offenders offenders who are on the register to also apply to the district court in regards to the fact is that the suspension of them on that register as well is also available for them as well. Mr. Speaker, I do want to commend this bill to the House. I think it's an important bill. As I've said before, it's part of a suite of tools that are critically important. It is not the silver bullet. It won't answer all the questions. The last thing I want to make is that comment that Jacinda Ardern had made, that maybe there was a missed opportunity. I do understand what the point she's trying to get across, and one of the tools is around sort of predictive profiling, which means that we can gather that information potentially where there are those that have a tendency that could be prone to this sort of behaviour. Then we can sort of be able to short circuit that by putting some wraparound support and maybe looking at ways in which we can divert that type of behaviour as well. There is still the provision to be able to do that within those different current agencies. This register, again, is a register. It allows for update information. It's going to be critically important. It is part of the tool and suites of tools that are critically important to the child information sex offenders unit, and we think that's important. Just one last comment. People were talking about the $146 million. We know that in Select Committee, members may have forgotten, but we were informed that 2/3 of that cost actually is already consumed in current operational costs at the moment. So we're not talking at the larger end of this. In fact, it's only 1/3 of the $146 million that we think is well spent on this register. Well, I do commend this bill to the House.